You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Appreciate being your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, and it's a Locked On Texas Tech special edition, Big 12 Weekly, where we're looking outside the confines of the 806 and maybe even looking out a little further this time around as we have a few different things to discuss. Wanted to get into some Big 12 returning quarterback conversation. Also wanted to touch on what is happening elsewhere outside of the Big 12 conference that could impact the Big 12 conference. Interesting things happening in Atlantic Coast courtrooms, which could mean Berkeley, California, I guess, technically at this point in time. But also want to touch on a little revisiting of a Texas Tech quarterback room just a couple of years ago, sort of a where are they now and where could they possibly be going as it relates to 2024 and beyond. But speaking of 2024, Chris, you might have seen here recently a list put out. This was highest graded returning Big 12 quarterbacks. And I was interested to kind of not necessarily run down the list with you, but get a perspective on who you feel like outside of obviously Behren Morton and Texas Tech is really jumping out to you as far as some of the most capable or impactful quarterbacks in the Big 12 Conference going into the season. Obviously, we got new members in the mix this time around as well. The guy at the top of the list, 90.9, the grade beside his name, is Garrett Green at West Virginia. Then you've got Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, Sam Hurd at Utah, Noah Fafita at Arizona. So three of the top four there represented by new members. Daquan Finn at Baylor, Zion Chris at Houston, KJ Jefferson at Central Florida, and on and on. But what do you make of some of those guys there at the top of the list? And maybe which of these is really jumping out to you that you feel like absolutely could be capable of possibly being the best quarterback in the league next year?
Yeah, I think Shedeur Sanders, who's on that list at I think number 2, he's thought to be maybe one of the top quarterbacks, like as a pro prospect in the country. A lot of people absolutely buy into that and go with 1,000%. Other people go, man, I just don't see it. He was 4-8 last year. There's a lot of drama that it revolves around him. Other people see the measurables and the skill set and all that stuff and go, oh yeah, you put him in an NFL system with quality people around him and an offensive line that can block and all those things. Look out. So that's worth mentioning just in and of itself. But Garrett Green is somebody that a little more running game based, if you will. Like, he's more dangerous with his legs but I mean, he deserves some credit here for what the kind of season that he led the Mountaineers to last year. And I think he's a big reason why. It's not flashy at times. I think he's not overwhelming like as a QB in a positive way, but he won and he's back and he's got some experience. He's also got some confidence and some swagger to him that I think that rubs off on his teammates, even where he gets himself in trouble because of some of that, taking his helmet off, getting a penalty, talking to the other team or whatever. But again, I think West Virginia kind of feeds off of it. So yeah, he'll be a handful. The interesting thing about the list you just mentioned to me is you mentioned the name of Sam Heward from Utah, who I don't think is expected to be Utah's starting quarterback at all. It would be Cam Rising, who missed last year and was very good the year before when he was healthy and all those things. I think Noah Fafita is a big reason why a lot of folks think Arizona could be a bit of a dark horse in the Big 12 and why they could be ranked in the preseason top 25. He is a big reason why they were so successful last year. Very, very good player. This is one of the most dangerous quarterbacks on your schedule as far as the opposition goes. Daquan Finn comes in to play for Baylor from a mid-major that set all kinds of records and extremely productive. And I think it caused a lot of head turning whenever he showed up. KJ Jefferson from Arkansas goes to Central Florida. I think that I don't know if they're the same kind of player, but you hear some people kind of whisper. I mean, he's kind of Cam Newton-like. He's just huge, super strong arm, and all those things. And so maybe Gus Malzahn can kind of, squeeze some things out of him. We know about Donovan Smith. At TCU, you have a player that is somebody that Josh Hoover that the Red Raiders saw. Rocco Becht is also back. He is somebody that I think had a very, very good year and a surprising year for Iowa State last year. And as we talked about recently in one of our shows, they have as much production back as anybody in the country, including Rocco Becht, who is a bit better than everybody thought he would be. But now there's some attention on him. But where is, where's Baron Morton on this list? Well, 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I think, as we all know, a bit compromised with his injury throughout the season and all those things. But I just think in this portal era, Cowan, that the days of like depleted quarterback room or inexperienced quarterback are going to be rare. Because you can fix it with the transfer portal. You can go get the experienced guy. You can, so, I mean, there's just not, I'll tell you who else we didn't talk about. Jalen Daniels, the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year. He's not on this list because he didn't take enough snaps to be registered for a grade. So, I mean, pretty good quarterback play in this league on paper, past experiences, or thought to be a pro prospect. However you want to look at it, there's a lot of juice at this position in this league.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And hopefully Baron Morton going to be joining that category that we speak of as far as some of those at the top of the list when the year is all said and done. And speaking of Baron Morton and being on lists, and also another name you mentioned, and Donovan Smith, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because this was head turning in some recent days. Now, this originated in a CBS Sports NFL mock draft list, and who was included in the first round, and not only in the first round, but to our beloved Dallas Cowboys, one Donovan Smith, who they slotted in at round 1, pick 25 as a potential replacement in the future for Dak Prescott. This was like double take worthy, at least from my perspective. I was curious how you felt about that, and also just kind of the path that we've traveled over the last couple of years with what your room was going back to, say, 2022 when it did feature guys like Donovan or Tyler Shuck, who's now at Louisville. And when the dust settled, Baron Morton was left standing alone as the Texas Tech quarterback. But certainly respect Donovan Smith and his toughness. But I also remember some of the flaws that we saw in his game, obviously as a passer. So I was a little taken aback to see anybody considering him as a potential first-round selection, not gospel, just a projection. But what'd you make of that? First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite events again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app where you're going to find the best last-minute deals. And I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. And, of course, it's always at the lowest price, guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that last beer at the tailgate at your own pace because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. They give you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast and easy, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. I was a little taken aback to see anybody considering him as a potential first-round selection, not gospel, just a projection. But what'd you make of that?
I don't see it. I think that the player in question here is a wonderful human. I've been fortunate enough to speak with him and interview him in a variety of settings, and he sat next to me on Coach McGuire's show. I love his dad and everything like that. He's got the measurables. I think he's got the athleticism. I think that when you talk about the NFL, though, where Donovan struggled when he was here, and I think he still struggles with it at Houston, is you really have to – he's just not the best at where he's so good at moving the pocket and throwing on the run and all those things. Where he's best at is, trying to see what a defense is doing. Like the simpler the play call, the better off he is. If he's got to go through a bunch of reads – he just has a tendency to let his athleticism take over, and I'm just going to tuck it and go, or I may end up throwing it to the wrong color jersey. And he's not alone there with a lot of guys, okay? So this isn't – but that's in the NFL, everything is disguised. Everything is changing. Oh, yeah. You have – even the best of the best get fooled, don't have enough juice on the ball or – athleticism, and you get exposed because I don't envision, but maybe the joke's on me. I mean, I would have said to you that I didn't think that that Pat Mahomes before that last year here for him, that he would have been a early first round pick, and this is going to be the last season he plays here. I'd have been like, what? Really? I mean, seriously? So that's what happened. And now he's the face of the league, the shield, if you will. So, but that's what I don't know if I envision that. Again, he hasn't just lit it up at Houston. He's been okay, but that's heavy steps. You start talking about first round picks for an NFL franchise, especially the Cowboys, because essentially I think what you're saying is that's a replacement for Dak Prescott. Yeah. And that means we're giving you the keys to the kingdom a bit, and I just don't know if I envision, that, but. Not again. Don't want to be critical. That's just as you look at the player in question, that's what I would see is that again measurables, sure, athleticism, absolutely, arm strength, I think probably, but it's just it's reading a defense and just going through multiple reads and all those things and putting your team in he just has and again we can say the same thing about Baron Morton. Baron Morton had threw it to the other team too much this past year.
Yeah. And of course, always staying healthy is a part of that equation, which is something that Donovan Smith had definitely over the guys that he was joining in that QB room once upon a time in Lubbock, and Tyler Shuck and Baron Morton, at least so far. And I kind of wonder just what you think about, since the dust did settle and you sorted that out and you wound up with Baron Morton as your guy. And maybe that's what Texas Tech always was hoping would eventually happen. I don't know if anybody necessarily was drawing it up to play out the way that it did necessarily. But I'm asking myself as a fan, do I wish there were any take backs or anything like that? Do I wish that, Tyler Shuck was still going to be at Texas Tech or something along those lines? And even with all the flaws and the difficulty in staying on the field or staying totally healthy that we've seen from Morton, I'd have to say no. Morton was always kind of the guy that I wanted to see, I guess, rise to the top back in those days. And we talked about a couple of days ago, or maybe just yesterday, the first time we really got to see him with a big opportunity at Oklahoma State and Stillwater that day. And he performed very, very well. Of course, got dinged up later on in the game, but performed very well. And I remember thinking at halftime of that game, adios, Tyler Shuck. I guess that era is over, because it seemed like Baron Morton was more than capable of being what Shuck was, and maybe even then some beyond that. So as a fan, I don't think I would have necessarily a take back on how it was sorted out, even though you've had difficulty keeping Baron Morton healthy.
Yeah, and we've seen great moments from all three of those guys. That was a unique that's when people go back to you're telling me Davis Webb, Baker Mayfield, and Pat Mahomes were on the same roster, or whatever combination it was at the time. I don't know if this will be similar when you look back on it, even several years from now that we're talking about it. But what I like to take back is just Barron's injuries.
Yeah.
That's what you like to take back. I think that this is the best combination, and based on his age, you were always going to invest heavily into the younger player with everybody, because you could get more years out of him and all those things. But we just it hadn't worked out like everybody would have thought, just because Barron's been dinged up with a high ankle sprain 2 years ago, and then a shoulder injury a year ago, and all those things. And it sucks. I mean, because how much better would you feel if you still had Tyler Shuck and or Donovan Smith on your team, and you had Barron's shoulder issue? Okay, you'd feel like, I mean, we're straight no matter what goes on here. Now, maybe chemistry wouldn't be great. Maybe there's the starting QB faction and the backup QB faction, and it's like the NWO versus whatever. And that can kind of fracture a locker room and all that when you've got some alphas that are, trying to, not every situation like that is an ideal one, but you darn sure feel better about an experienced option there that you had seen good things from, because right now, you don't. It's a bit of a wait and see, or hope you don't ever have to put Cam Brown in harm's way, or Jake Strong or Will Hammond kind of thing. But that was the beauty of that quarterback room at the time. But now now they're all still wearing red, just different kind of versions of red. You got Louisville and Houston and Texas Tech. So
still very much interested to see how they progress, and we'll be interested to see all of them this upcoming year.
You had 3 starting quarterbacks at the Power 4 or 5 level on your team at the same time.
Yeah,
that's the reality of it, because that's what they are right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, before we are out of here, let's get to what's happening in courtrooms elsewhere that could eventually, obviously, impact the Big 12 conference. There are many, or all eyes on the ACC right now, wondering about crumbling, dissolution, or maybe just restructuring. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and it's do or die time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, player props, money lines, and a whole lot more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. There are many, or all eyes on the ACC right now, wondering about crumbling, dissolution, or maybe just restructuring, which was one word used by a guy getting some attention. You may not know this name, and if you don't, it's okay, because I didn't either. UNC trustee Dave Bolek, who apparently won a political race of some kind, I think just in the last 24 to 48 hours in North Carolina, but got some attention this week because of his advocating for North Carolina to join, quote, a higher revenue league. He went on to say, that's what we need to do. We need to do everything we can to get there. Or the alternative is the ACC is going to have to reconstruct itself. I think all options are on the table. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips was asked about the North Carolina Board of Regents advocating to leave the league. He said, quote, those are campus discussions in politics. I don't know what's true and what's not. And just one other interesting salvo as it relates to some of this. Whenever Florida State previously, some leadership there had made some similar comments to, looking for a better way to make money inside the ACC or outside the ACC. The North Carolina athletics director said, quote, what they want to do and how they want to go about doing their business, that is their business, but it does have an impact on us. And quite frankly, I don't think it's good for our league for them to be out there barking like that, end quote. How quickly things can change. Now, he may not like this either, but it's happening nonetheless. And seems like this thing is not progressing necessarily at lightning speed, Chris, but the snowball continues to kind of accumulate. And obviously being fans of a Big 12 program and those who cover a Big 12 program, we've seen these things before and know how they can eventually wind up. So what are you making of some of this week?
One, the ACC is done. It is done.
Can there be a 2 after that? If you say 1, it's over.
I mean, it is a matter of time before the ACC is no longer what we have come to know.
Wow.
That is a matter of time. Now, whether that's 6 months, a year, 5 years, whatever, the ACC, there is no long-term future for the ACC. That is a guarantee. Okay. And I'm rare to say things like that, but it's just not going to work, people. It is. And so because I think what the North Carolina folks are saying is, hey, you either, because tell me if you think this works, and wink, wink, we've seen it before. Guess what? It does not. What he's saying is we want out or we want to restructure. And what he means by restructure is we want more money than everybody here. And I don't care about the little guy in the league.
Right.
We're not equals anymore. Like this is the way this is going to go. And you tell me how long-term that will go, or if everybody will go for that. Because guess what? They're not going to go for it. I hate to tell the folks at Florida State, too, because here's point number 2. The folks at Florida State and Clemson, I think, are probably keenly aware. If not, I think they're a bit delusional. And I think that the general public doesn't really grasp this concept either. But if all free agents – neither one of you are the number 1 draft pick in the ACC right now. The Big Ten and the SEC are not knocking down the door to pluck you first if the ACC were to fall apart, because it would be North Carolina. That is the number 1 draft pick there of the ACC. I don't think a lot of folks just generally grasp it because we have so much football in mind. North Carolina, biggest population of the places we're talking about here. I think academics are now granted, Cowan's going to drop in the essay joke or the textbook joke or whatever that they got in trouble for, the cheating exams. However, more often than not, their academic reputation, is very on point. I mean, they have a brand that stretches across multiple sports. I mean, folks, they even have their own color. Okay, that baby blue, Carolina blue is what it's called. Go look at it on a crayon box or Google it. But that's the reality here. And I think Florida State and Clemson, there's a pecking order here. But North Carolina, and think about it, culturally, North Carolina could fit into the Big Ten or the SEC, and you would never really think twice about it, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So I just think it's pretty interesting now that they are being outspoken, even though it's a campus conversation. Y'all clean that up.
Right.
I mean, we need to be at a higher revenue league, or else we need to redo what we're doing here. I mean, it's when you start getting into the trustee world, I mean, and they were at this like unbelievable like island resort, this week with conference meetings and just shaking hands and sipping coffee and doing the whole thing, probably enjoying each other's company. And meanwhile, there's lawsuits going on. There's folks saying, yeah, we're here for this fancy meeting in this beautiful resort, but the way we do things sucks, so fix it. We want ours, folks. And if you're like Georgia Tech or a Boston College or whatever, you got to be kind of going back to your room after meetings every day going, I don't even know who to call, but we got problems here.
Problems, yeah.
I need to report back to home base.
Wake Forest, yeah.
There's a lot of possibilities that would potentially struggle with an ACC falling apart.
I think it would be hilarious to all of a sudden see Wake Forest, Boston College, maybe back to Cal and Stanford. Welcome to the Pac-12 conference, folks. The Pac is alive. We're just going to go ahead and swap you right back on over to the other coast. necessarily expect that to happen, but there could be a similar fate for some of those, as we were just touching on in an episode yesterday as we strolled through the YouTube comments, the thought of relegation, maybe by another name.
Yeah, and point number 3, if and when the ACC, I do need to say when, because I just, there's not one fiber of my being based on who I've talked to out there that suggests to me that the ACC will be made whole and has a long-term future. It just does. It's not a possibility. Now, do I have the answers on where, like the North Carolina or the Florida States or the Clemsons or where they go? Do I have a good feel for, who would be scooped up where, which leads us to this last point, and then I'll wrap it up. But the Brett Yormark and the Big 12 would certainly be ready to conduct business in a variety of different cities. I don't know what that would look like, but there's some schools that make some sense. I think Miami's the one that creates the most conversation as it relates to like the 4th school in the ACC that could get, based on location, based on some branding, based on, a variety of different things, could they go with like those other 3 in some form or fashion somewhere? I don't know. But I mean, you start getting into Pitt, you start getting into, there's a variety of different options. We talked, Louisville makes a lot of sense. There's just Duke, Duke could go with 2 on the upper deal and it'd be a Big 10. And I don't know, but I just would say the Big 12 would stand to, and you would clearly be like the 3rd best league at that point if the ACC did fall apart. But I think you could kind of pick up some pretty decent options. And again, you still have Worth and all that. You'd just be missing a lot of the blue blood programs and all those things. But anyway, we'll let everybody else sort that out. I don't know timetable there, but there's just too much infighting and not enough money in the ACC right now. It's a problem. It's going to continue to be a problem until it's not. And then at that point, we'll see kind of what happens. And I'm sure Brett Yormark's going, here we go. And maybe he's the one with his hand out to the Florida States or the Clemsons or the North Carolinas. Not that that's what they would ultimately want, but, we shall see.
Got to make the call either way. And obviously, whenever a league is adding Cal, Stanford, and SMU, that the bell is tolling for thee. As far as when it comes to pass, who knows? But yeah, seems like kind of a formality at this point in time. All right, appreciate a little bonus time this weekend, Chris, and enjoyed it as always, man. We'll see you for the next round on the other side.
That sounds wonderful. Hope everybody had a lovely weekend, and we will talk to you early next week, man. Subscribe, comment. We certainly appreciate it. We love doing these extra shows when time allows, and appreciate you organizing them, Cowan. Fun to be with you.
You got it, man. And that's right. Get subscribed if you're not already on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for being out there, and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.